Thank you very much for attending today. We'll get started. I know we've got a few people that are still not quite logged in, but I want to make sure I get you guys done for anybody that's got a hot lunch date or something along those lines. All righty. So to start off with, I got to do the legal deal. Just a quick disclaimer, we don't state that we're giving you any kind of legal advice or that this is going to protect you from ever getting hit by any kind of cyber attack. We know that that's an impossibility. This is for information only, but I hope it's good information and prudent information, and it'll help you guys as you go forward. So for our agenda today, we're going to basically talk about your risks, what kind of cybersecurity trends are out there today, some basic prevention techniques and things you can do to perform some internal audits. If you want to go a little deeper, we'll talk about penetration testing and vulnerability scans that you can have done by third parties, or how you might be able to go a little deeper if you need to. Then we'll hit the top 10 best business practices for small businesses on protecting yourself, and then some Q&A, and I might even stop for some Q&A in the middle here if we're staying on time. And then, of course, at the end, for those of you that participated today, we are giving away, it's $50, Steve? Yep. Right on. So $50 gift card to somebody at the end of the presentation. So very good deal. All right, so let's talk about security. By definition, security is basically being free from danger or threat. And the question that I pose to you is, does not knowing about a threat make it safe or secure? In other words, is ignorance of that threat make you any more secure? And the obvious answer is no. That's what we call a false sense of security. So my goal today is to make sure that you don't have to learn from personal experience by getting hacked, but learn from others' experience and some basic safety practices that we're going to talk about today. So when we talk about security, kind of the prerequisite to cybersecurity is physical security. So obviously you need to have physical access to devices. And I want to pause here for a second because I want to make sure we're talking about anything that can connect to the internet in any way, shape, or form really needs to be considered here. We're not talking just about servers or workstations. We're talking about your tablets, your laptops, your cell phones, your Fitbits, your iPods, anything that can connect to the internet. We've got to have that first layer of physical security. And most of us, when we think about physical security, we can think of a few different types depending on whether you're a bank or a home or a business. We all know different examples of how to protect things in the physical world. And for the most part, we know when there's been a breach. We see the door kicked in, we know the window's been broken, we have some kind of knowledge of, hey, somebody has invaded my space, so to speak. We can even audit those things by, putting up cameras or having check-in, check-out logs, access control systems on our doors. So we kind of get what we need to do in this physical world to protect ourselves. So we all understand it, we get it, we've grown up with it, and we even know how to assess risk and prevent risk depending on how much money we want to spend doing that. So when we think about cybersecurity, how do you know if you're a target? We already talked about ignorance is not necessarily keeping you safe. So how do we know if we're a target? So before we dive in too deep, I'm going to do a real quick poll here and gather some information from you. So the first one that we're going to do is basically, how many of you online right now have been affected by some sort of identity theft or cybercrime, either personally or professionally? And I really hope to see that number change from 100%. So I'll share the results with you here in a second. That was really alarming. And I think we can see what percentage have voted here. We're up in the 80-something%. I'll give you a couple more seconds. All righty, so we'll close the results or close and then share the results to you. So wow, what we got there, Steve? What is that?
We've got 64% say yes and 36% say no.
Wow, so that's 2/3 of our attendees have personally been affected. So let's try the next one here and see what it looks like. Alrighty, so if it hasn't been you personally, let's do this again and say, how many of you know someone else, if it's not just you, that's been affected, whether that's a family member or coworker or somebody around you that's been affected by cybersecurity one way, shape, or form? You guys are fast on the button this time. Perfect. All right, looks like I'll give you a couple more seconds. We're in the high 90s here for a response rate. So let's hit the close, and let's go ahead and share the results of this one. So now where are we at?
So we are at 94% say yes, 6% say no.
Yes. So again, that's a great, it's the reason why you're all here, is to learn a little bit more about how to keep the damage, I guess, from happening. So very similar to when we talked about the physical world and the fact that you know, we can't stop people from breaking in, right? Even if we spend thousands and thousands of dollars, we can't keep that from happening. But we can, of course, you know, limit the risk that we're done. So let's see how we do with the kind of others that are out there. So statistically, 18% of our local police agencies have been victims of cyber attack. So even the guys that are out there trying to help protect us surely can't stop it. And you have to be pretty bold and brazen to be hitting a police agency. If you look at the FBI, 300,000 complaints a year is where we're averaging right now, and about $800 million in losses. And the other thing that I want to kind of point out here is this is not just about business. I know a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is business, but hopefully we take what we learn here and we apply that to our personal lives as well. There's a lot of things going on, you know, with our teenagers that have grown up in a world of, you know, cyber everything. 1 in 5 have been, you know, solicited online in one way or another. So what can we do to help that? When we think about a small business perspective, 44% of small businesses have reported being a victim of cybercrime. So that, to me, that's a staggering number. And actually, I pulled this from a 2013 statistic. I couldn't find anything that was more recent, but I've got to believe that it's even higher than that, both in the number and in the cost. And what was surprising was most of us, about 60% almost, do not have some sort of a procedure that's written for responding to breaches in security. We're going to talk about risks a little bit more, but you know, one of the biggest risks is if you have a breach, it's not just the cost of what it does to your business, it's the cost potentially of you know, unwanted bad reputation, of loss of business, and even if you lose other people's security, identity, etc., you can be fined. So there's a lot more at stake here than just what you might realize up front. So why are you a target? And by you, it's mostly small businesses that are on the phone with us today and on our webinar. The primary reasons is criminals know that small businesses are frugal. That's a code word for cheap for some of us, and believe that we're safe. We go around thinking, you know, the world's a pretty safe place. I'm a very small target. Criminals are going to go after the Microsofts and the IBMs and the big banks and those sorts of things. So I don't need to spend as much time protecting myself. They generally know that IT budgets aren't like fully supported. Lots of times security is one of the last things on a budget line item because we're more concerned about productivity, right? Because that's what's top of mind. How can I use technology to do things better, faster? Not necessarily how do I secure what I have. And then the biggest thing that we want to look at here is companies are often infected well before they ever know it. The average period of non-discovery is about 6 months. And that's an average. I know I've run across many that have been like years in the making, where they've had something on their Exchange server or something. Maybe we took them on as a client. It's like, did you know that you've been sending out spam for the last, however many years? So it's crazy some of the things that can happen out there. So how do they get us? Right? What are some of the exploits that are out there? Right? We're not stupid. We know that this stuff's there. I'm sure, I hope, some of you guys have at least been cautious of things like what I'm displaying here. Legitimate, hey, your Federal Express package or UPS package didn't make it. Hey, you need to reset your password at the bank. Hey, you need to pay your invoice for your cell phone. All of these different things can come at us and be false, right? But we can't live in a world where we can't respond to anything. So we're going to talk a little bit about how do we kind of separate the real from the fiction in some of these areas. Not a day goes by that you don't see stuff like this. The headlines in the news about all the different attacks that are taking place. I'm sure you guys remember the whole Sony deal and the Korea deal. It happened a little while back. A little more recently, this was literally last week. If you've heard about Dyn, it's a large company that kind of does stuff on the internet with kind of how to navigate around on the internet, basically. But it took down, Amazon, Twitter, Netflix, PayPal. A lot of these big hitters that rely on the internet, got hit. Interestingly enough, about this specific attack, it's one of the first ones that use some specific software targeted at the Internet of Things. So I talked a little earlier about anything that touches the network, like your Fitbit, for instance, or your smart TV, or all these different kinds of things that are touching the internet. This was targeted using those devices to basically conduct a denial of service attack. So basically, in layman's terms, if everybody in the world tried to log into something at the same time, you're going to overwhelm it, and that's what some of these guys are doing now. And of course, top of mind for a lot of us as we get close to the elections, there's a lot of concern that some bad things might happen on election night. So it'll be interesting to see how well we do as a nation even on this one, because it's got a lot of attention right now.
Dan, we've got a question specifically for small businesses. Are hackers in Russia specifically targeting my small business, or is it more the kind of phishing email and somebody clicks on it and then I get hit with ransomware?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of concern with foreign entities, for instance, and they're not just attacking our police departments and things like that. They are going after the raw fiber of our internet. They're going after personal information. And I'll talk a little bit more here about, I guess, the value of your personal information. So even if you aren't a bank or you don't have a large bank account, your information, your credit cards, your address, your PIN numbers, your passwords, those sorts of things have extreme value to the black market. So yes, I think we are a target, whether we want to believe that we are or not. So how did this all come about? We've had changes in technology over the last probably even 5 years. Lots of things have happened where we've moved more and more stuff to the cloud. Right? We have software in the cloud, that we have subscriptions and apps. Lots of times we rent our infrastructure in the service as a service, like our servers and our desktops. Well, in that same time period, there's a thing that's basically called cybercrime as a service, and it even has its own initials, just like all the other AASs that are out there, and that AAS sounds a lot like something else that sometimes these guys can be. So our cybercrime as a service, it's basically just gotten easier for the bad guys to do what they do. In the old days, you'd have full-blown organizations, much like companies that were centralized. They'd start from scratch. They'd build a whole bunch of servers and really big, expensive data centers, and they would go after really large targets because the investment was huge to have to set up to be able to do this, much like these foreign governments, Steve, that we're talking about. So in today's world, there's a whole crime ecosystem. Okay, so it's no longer one place. It's distributed throughout the entire internet. You can now buy or host bits and pieces and kind of make up your own puzzle. They generally specialize in certain areas, certain verticals of our marketplace, and they're really cheap, and they're going after small targets. I'm sure many of you have seen a lot of the scams where, if you take 10 cents from, the billions of people, you have a large sum of money, and that's what they're going after, is a lot of these smaller targets. Here are some legitimate ads that are out there right now. You can Google them a little bit later and just look at advertisements for criminals. You'll see that a lot of these are in different languages, Russian and Middle Eastern and some of those kinds of things. So you have job postings that are out there looking for criminals. You have payment systems that are no longer traceable. We have Bitcoins and web money, perfect money. So when someone wants to take your money, it's easy to trace the dollar bill or a credit card, but it's not so easy to trace because it's impossible in some of these other forms of currency. And then we have actual marketplaces where you can go and buy a whole solution set. So if I want to be a hacker, I can just get on and go. Here are some actual apps, some software that are cybersecurity as a service, plug and play type systems. They're less than a couple $100 a piece. Here's a specific one I pulled up just so you can see how sophisticated these are. There's one that's called SpyEye that's out there, and literally you kind of configure your executable that you want to put in somebody's USB and have them load it, or you want to do whatever to get the thing started, and you can go right down to selecting what kind of information that you want. The concept of malvertising is on the rise. And this is basic where somebody sets up a website that's got that newly created executable we just saw. You run an ad out there and tell people to log into Yahoo. You redirect their traffic so it goes to your server, and bammo, you load this botnet or something on their server. You send them an email that's infected, whatever. I'm sure all of you have seen these different types of responses where someone says, hey, if you got an email from me this morning, it wasn't me. Those types of things, those are all indications that somebody's systems got hacked and they're trying to protect you real quick. The biggest one, certainly for us over the last couple of years, thank God not as much this year now that we've incorporated some stronger defense mechanisms for our clients, but this concept of ransomware and crypto, I'm going to call it crypto everything. There's so many different names now I couldn't even put them all on the page here. But basically your files get encrypted and you can't get them back unless you pay a ransom for that. They're now even using their splash screens to be looking like the federal government. So you might get something that says, hey, your computer has been downloading movies or music illegally and you need to pay a fine. Okay, well I can tell you that fine's not going to the Department of Justice, it's going in somebody else's pocket. I even saw an example here not too long ago where the ransomware has a try before you buy option. So all of us don't like to deal with criminals. We don't know if we pay that ransom whether we're actually going to get our files back or not. So now they're offering a one-time send us the name of the file you'd like us to recover and we'll give it to you for free just to show you that we can do it so that you'll be more inclined to pay the ransomware. Alrighty, so hopefully I've scared the socks off of most of you and we can go into some basic prevention mode here. The biggest one is education, and I appreciate those that have joined us today because you're on the right path. The first thing is just to really learn what's out there and to teach others. They don't call these things viruses for no reason. They literally infect all of us, and if you're sloppy, you can expose others. So that's the reason that there's this whole cybersecurity month of awareness is to try to get all of us to just kind of be a little safer because it's better for all of us. Biggest one is to make sure you got a backup. So no matter what happens, you could get hacked, etc. Make sure you've got your data backed up, safe. You're doing disaster recovery, models, etc. to make sure it works. Try to prevent, the stuff before it starts. And it's not just antivirus software. That's the biggest thing. Most of us think, yeah, I bought some antivirus software, I'm good. But there's a lot more to it than that. I like talking about blocking sites at the network layer. So there is software and solutions out there that basically will not allow you to go to bad sites, or will recognize when you're being redirected to other sites, etc. Those are all really, really important. And even those, they'll protect from those phishing attacks where they're telling you to go somewhere like UPS that's not legit. They'll help block those sorts of things. So just remember, browsers aren't the only path of infection. I was talking about like your Fitbits and your USB keys, and so many different things connect to your network now. And if you think about it, every single one of those is trying to keep up with their security. So if I should have done another poll here, how many of you have a smart TV at home that accesses the internet? And how many of you have recently installed the latest and greatest service patches for your TVs? I bet you it'd be about 0 because as long as it works, nobody seems to care. So if you do get infected, you want to contain that so it can't get out. One big way is to make sure that the crypto locker or the spam or the spyware can't phone home, so to speak. So again, this concept of monitoring your content going out your internet connection is really, really large. It used to be that we as companies and businesses thought that was spying on our employees, wasn't really looked too favorably upon. Yeah, maybe we wanted to keep people off Facebook so they'd be more productive, but we kind of just looked the other way. Now, I'm asking you to really consider monitoring that traffic, because you may start seeing things going to IP addresses in other companies. You maybe see, things going to, sites that you don't recognize, etc. There's a high likelihood that that stuff is bad, and that's a good way to kind of stop the ransomware and encryption. And I am speeding up a little bit. I got a lot of stuff I'm trying to cover. We will give you guys access to this afterwards, so if I go too fast, you'll get it a little bit later. Some other containment, basically, make sure you're doing some audits regularly. Don't just have one solution. I talked about that before. Antivirus is not the only thing. Think about, bulletproof glass. It's made up of multiple layers. We want to do the same thing with your security profile. Here's some kind of different examples of when you're on the network. You want to have a firewall. You want to have this network layer security. We use a product called OpenDNS for that. You want to make sure people are trained. You want to have, an email-specific, blocker. And then when you're on the road with your laptop, cell phones, etc., big risk here. You don't have as much of that corporate stuff in front of you, so that's the area to really watch. Again, kind of a real quick visual graphic on some of the different ways to block that traffic. So from an auditing perspective, what can you do? One of the things I highly recommend is to audit your firewall. Your firewall is your device that keeps it's between you and the raw internet. And so between your home and the internet, between your business and the internet, it should be blocking people coming in that are not authenticated. But people can try. It's open to the world. If you're on the internet, people can hit your firewall. Anybody from anywhere. That denial of service attack that I talked about before, if enough people were mad at you and everybody wanted to try to get into your firewall, you basically would have zero internet, because they just flood it and you wouldn't be able to do anything. Even though they didn't get in, they could still make your day a miserable one. Right? So one thing you want to look at is the log files and see, are people trying to get in on a somewhat regular basis. You want to know if any configuration changes are happening. Many times these things happen with a process. They'll get in and they'll just make one tiny little change to see if you notice. Then they'll come back in and make another change, etc. So you're really looking for any changes. Your Wi-Fi access points, again, very similar to the firewall. This is a place where you can get into your network from the outside very easily. So you should be looking at your even your cheapo ones you might pick up at Office Depot at home. You can still look at the logs and find out, hey, I don't recognize half of these devices that are accessing my Wi-Fi or attempting to access my Wi-Fi. What can you do about it? You can block them, you can delete them, you can set up rules to notify you, all kinds of different things like that. On your basic network at work or home, again, you can find out how many devices are connecting through that local device. And the big one there is, where are they coming from? So if you're seeing connections that are coming from outside your residence or outside your business, that's when you need to be a little bit alarmed. And then, of course, device activity logs all the way down to your phones, etc. All of them are logging everything all the time. So knowing how to access those logs and seeing things that look strange, that's a big one. And in that area, it's really the what are they accessing, right? So if I notice on my cell phone that it's accessing my bank accounts, and I'm not a guy that does that, that could be a concern for me. those types of things, what's taking place. And then a big one that's really isn't from an auditing perspective all that much, but it's your password management systems. So for some of you, that's the Post-it note on your desk. That's really, really bad. You can audit that, but it may not help you much. Others have more sophisticated password management systems where you have a password vault, etc. You should review that. Most of those have logs that show how often you've accessed, when did you last change your password, those kinds of things. And then you'll hear me talk about encouraging two-factor authentication a little bit later.
Dan, we've got a question. Somebody's asking, when they go to the coffee shop or when they're at the airport, is that safe to use the wireless?
I think all of those, if you didn't enter a password, I'm just going to tell you that it's not safe. I mean, that's about the easiest way. If you didn't pay for it, it's probably not safe. I mean, there's a few of those. Now, when we say safe versus can I use it, kind of two different things. I would access certain things, the raw internet. If I was killing time, Googling something or whatever is likely not going to kill my system, although people can still get in, so I'm assuming my system's protected, etc. But right now, data is cheap enough on cell phones. Most of the time when I'm in a hotel, when I'm in an airport, etc., I actually use the data plan on my phone. Because it is something I pay for, it's private, it's encrypted, it's got my password on it. So again, it's free for a reason. So, talk about penetration testing. So if you're a bank or you've got a lot of credit card activity, if you are involved in the medical industry or certain manufacturing type things where you have compliancy issues, usually you're going to go a step further and you're actually going to be paying for some sort of penetration testing. The tools to do this are pretty expensive. The skills required are kind of high, so some of the stuff we can't really do very easily on our own as like private people. But they basically are going to do some internal and external testing to see what basically they can crack. I'm sure you've heard of the ethical hacker concept. You're trying to basically say, okay, test this out, tell me where the problems are so I can try to bolster my systems. Some sample assessments. We actually own some tools at Key Methods, and we do this for some of our clients and prospects. Again, they're not to the level where I certify a bank or anything with them, but they're very good to help with general protection. You'll go through, you'll get some sort of risk score. You can get some different, what sorts of things do I need to fix to make it better. One of the biggest things that we typically find is just lack of cleaning up your network. So if we go through and we see, hey, you've got 15 different computers that haven't checked into your network, haven't logged in a while, you got 12 or 13 different users that haven't accessed their accounts in a while. Typically we find these are people that got terminated or left or whatever, and we just didn't quote unquote clean up after them. So really strong suggestion here is to do that cleanup. Anytime you leave an open account there, even if you change the password, it's still there. It's still a point that somebody might be able to enter. So try to stay on top of those, delete them, etc. Same thing with your passwords, right? There's tests to see if they're strong enough. There's tests to see if you're changing them often enough. All those kinds of things. So these are things that are done with a security assessment or penetration testing. Okay. So now we kind of get down to the top 10 best practices here. I like to start off, just by saying let's not be naive. Spend time educating yourself as you guys are doing today, and even better, help those around you, whether that's coworkers, family and friends, etc. Help them to know what you know. Stop and consider everything that touches the internet. And I love the Internet of Things. You see that in the news more and more. It's going to become a bigger and bigger part of our lives today. You've already seen some of the electronic cars getting hacked. You've seen, anything that's connecting to the internet has the ability to get hacked. And trust me, the second that a new one comes out, there's a whole gang of everybody trying to be the first that can crack it. So there's nothing that's really foolproof, but what we can do is at least be aware of it and just manage our risks accordingly. Just say no sometimes, and I put on here even if it's cool. I know, I thought I put it on here, maybe I did on another slide, but I know apps are great. Somebody tells you about a new app, you can search your Google Play Store or iTunes or whatever. There's all these cool things. There's free games. There's so much stuff out there that it's crazy. But sometimes it's wise to just say no, especially if you download it and it's something as benign. The flashlight app was the biggest one that was out there for a long time. Everybody wanted a flashlight app. There's a reason why most of the phone manufacturers have now built it in, because almost every one of those flashlight apps was some sort of a hacking scam. When you light it up and it says it wants access to your contacts, your location, your everything about you, there's a reason that it's doing that. Because it's free, but you're paying for it just in a way you don't really want to pay for it. Evaluate the common threats that are happening out there. There's all kinds of places. I have some resources at the end here that talk about hacking trends, etc. I know a lot of us love to, spend time, seeing everything that's going on with, maybe Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. I would highly suggest you take some portion of the time and just kind of track what's going on, get on some blogs, get on some newsletter lists for things in the security area, because you'll pick up on a lot of good stuff that way, stuff you don't think about. That concept of protecting in layers that I talked about before, use multiple forms of protection. You should at least have a really good firewall, and especially if you're a business or a small business. We're not talking about the ones that you can go pick up at Costco. We're talking about the ones that you buy that have what's called UTM, Unified Threat Management, right on the device, that at least help to try to block stuff that's coming in. If you think about the stress that's put on a firewall, getting all these different hits trying to get through, if you've got a cheap device that can't quote-unquote keep up, lots of times stuff bypasses the processor, or you have a really, really slow experience. So again, I can't express enough. Make sure you got a really good firewall and really good Wi-Fi. Those are two that are well worth your investment. Kind of cheated here. I ended up going overboard. So we actually have 11 when we get down here at the end. But perform regular audits. Put it on your Outlook calendar. Put it on your physical calendar if you still use one, so that it pops up on your phone. Says, hey, have you looked at the firewall log, lately? Hey, have you, updated my TV, software? Those kinds of things. Just get into some sort of a rhythm that you're constantly doing something to improve how you're at. And if you're in an organization that you've got compliance issues, etc., I would look at getting an external party to come in and do vulnerability testing. Again, I don't think I made it into the slide deck here, but a great resource is your insurance companies. So we talked already about the dollars that you may be exposed to, both in loss of business as well as fines. Most insurance companies have cybersecurity as something that they can cover. Lots of them do not cover it automatically, so it's something you have to pay for. But many of them will give you discounts if you go through certain training or do certain things, and many of those have great resources on their websites too. So take a peek at your insurance company's website. Two-factor authentication whenever possible. This is becoming way more popular now. which is great. This is where you go to reset your password, and they say, would you like me to send you a text message, right? So they know that you have a physical device, your phone, that should be in your presence. So it's not only something you know, a password, but it's something you physically own and have on your possession, your cell phone. I have two-factor authentication set up on most of the stuff that I use. There's Google Authenticators are real popular, your website that will help you do that. Lots of your, like I said, bank accounts, etc. now will let you do that. So that, even if everybody somehow finds out my password, if I have two-factor authentication, they still can't get in because they have to have a code that's going to be popping up on my cell phone, or one of these little cards you keep in your wallet, or a token that you carry with you. So it is a very good way to stop things from happening. I know most of us, with every layer of security comes some layer of pain in the butt, but that's part of what you got to do. Have a written security policy in place. So there's a lot of things that happen because people make assumptions. So if it's okay to bring in devices from home and use your Wi-Fi at work, then better have some security policies in place that maybe say when and how often, and are their personal devices going to infect your network, some of those sorts of things. Oh, I did put the flashlight app in here. I thought it was in here somewhere. So another one is delete unused apps. So here I talk about the flashlight app was like one of the biggest ones, but I think every one of us has apps that maybe we haven't used for months or years, or we just downloaded it because it looked cool, or someone said I had to have it. A, it takes up space, so you might as well get rid of it from a resource standpoint. But B, it's a program that's on your device that likely isn't getting updated, that could have an exploit that is available to be utilized. And most of those apps, when we first installed them, asked stuff like, hey, can I use your contacts? Hey, can I access your email? Hey, can I do whatever I feel like? And we all said yep, yep, yep when we installed it. So it's just sitting there like a time bomb waiting for somebody to exploit. So get rid of them. They don't need to be there. And certainly this concept of if it doesn't feel right, then it probably isn't. Just don't take the risk. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, hey, I got this email and I don't know if I should follow the link or whatever. And most of the cases it's then don't. Delete it. If it's important enough, somebody will call you, or someone will get back to you. So it's just not worth taking the risk. There are some kind of safe zones. If you have, for instance, our email antivirus package that we have with our product, you could actually click on it and go to the website that the anti-spyware is at and read it. So you're basically not on your machine, you're on somebody else's machine. So if you really had to, make sure that you do that in a safe zone, not on your business networks. Another one that's kind of interesting is watch your credit cards, your credit scores, and other types of identity theft signals. And again, some of the resources I have here, I'll talk a lot about identity theft and how you know if you've been taken advantage of. But just things that are strange. If you're getting mail to your house that isn't in your name, if you get something from the Social Security Administration that you didn't ask for. I mean, there's a lot of these different things that can happen where someone can take your identity. Lots of these credit card scams. What's funny is it used to be 10 cents, 20 cents. Now it's big numbers. I know of a gentleman that just got hit with like $90 or something for File Safe or File Watch or File Store or something along those lines. And yeah, so a lot of us buy things online. So you've got your credit card information out there in a lot of different places. Sometimes it's hard to watch what's coming in, but it's worth taking a look. Here's some additional information that I wanted to kind of throw out there for you. Again, you'll get copies of this so you can look at it, but basically StaySafeOnline.org is a very large organization that has just tons and tons of resources not only for yourself, but if you get involved with the community or do anything along those lines, lots of good stuff on there. The FCC has a bunch of things on there. This cyber planner, it's actually almost like creates your cybersecurity plan online. You put in your company name and address and what kind of sections do you want, and it kind of puts something together for you. Dump it into Word, edit it, take out the things you don't like. Great way to start. And then, of course, the Department of Homeland Security, and did a snapshot here, is one that's really got a big push right now. They know that us being exposed makes everything exposed. You know, so just think about if a foreign government could get onto all of our computers and then tell all of our computers to, you know, hit the Pentagon at the same time. You know, a foreign entity doesn't even need to do anything. It's like we're doing all the work for them. So it's important for us to be able to hop on and know that kind of stuff. So do we have any other questions that kind of popped in there, Steve? I think I stayed on time fairly well. So
yeah. Somebody's asking, if you do get hit with ransomware, what do you do?
Hopefully you go back to your backup systems and you restore stuff. In the cases where we have had you know, clients hit, that is generally what we do first and foremost. There is some additional stuff that you probably want to do, and that's spending some time investigating, if you can, how did it get there in the first place. So if there is an open door somewhere, you make sure you plug that. I hate to say this, I have never paid ransom, nor do I have anybody super close to me that's paid it, but I do have a ton of colleagues that I do business with that I know have clients and have paid the ransom and have gotten their stuff back. I have this deep fear in me that you're going to get your files back plus some, and it may crop up a little bit later. So really, that's a very, very, very last resort. If you did have to do that, my recommendation would be to get your stuff back, quarantine it somehow, isolate it, and make sure you don't keep it with the rest of your stuff. Hopefully whoever asked that question isn't in that situation right now, or won't be anytime soon.
Somebody's asking if we'll provide electronic copy of the PowerPoint, and we will. We'll make sure we get that sent out to everyone. Let's see here. We've got a few more questions. Somebody's asking, is there a way to test staff to see who clicks a link after a training?
That is a great suggestion, and I know there are some, like I said, the Ethical Hacker, they do some phishing. That's typically what that is you're trying to see if somebody will take the bait. I have not done one of those yet, but if you're interested, get with me later and I could help you figure out how to do that. There's certainly ways that you can do that from an outside entity, either yourself or you can actually pay to have a similar service done. But that's a really good idea. I would suggest in front of that, just having some general education. I know at our office we do lunch and learns every Wednesday. We talk about stuff like this, and we just kind of do role playing. What would you do if, you know, type scenarios, and just see what kind of feedback you get, and then go from there.
Let's see. So I know a lot of our clients are on the call right now. Maybe just explain briefly for the people that, you know, have our firewall, have our backup device, and explain what they have in place right now.
Yeah. So if we've got a couple of different service plans, so it kind of depends on where you're at. But if you're on our Essential Care, Complete Care service plans, if you're subscribing to Key Methods Best Practice, you will have generally a Fortinet firewall in place. So when we talked about having a good firewall, you have a good one. Most of you have probably renewed it, so you're on a subscription where it's got a antivirus essentially on it. There are log files that are on that we review, and we get notified if some bad stuff happens, you know, on those devices. All of you have WebRoot antivirus. When I said earlier that we didn't have as many hits of CryptoLocker this year, Last year we had Viper was the antivirus that was installed. There's been some advancements. Seems like almost every other year somebody kind of takes the lead in the antivirus world that has the best product. We try to keep up with that, and we made it switch to Webroot. Webroot is a behavior-based antivirus system, and actually I'm seeing more going that way. So what it's doing is not just looking at the zeros and ones going in and out of your system to see a signature that equals a virus, because there's so many of them that takes a long time to do, takes a lot of system resources, and you miss stuff. It's now looking at, hey, why are you trying to encrypt everything on your hard drive? Hey, why are you trying to change all the system registry settings? Those types of things that an end user would not normally do. When it sees bad behavior, it starts to create an on-the-fly backup from which it can restore. So really, really sophisticated stuff, which I'm glad to see, continues to happen. And then outside of that, we obviously have, your monitoring of your workstation, so we can see if, something happens to a lot of workstations at one time. Where you see stuff that's happening in your general area, that kind of stuff. So hope that helps, Steve. That's a good question.
Let's do the drawing real quick, and then we have a few more questions. So let's go ahead and do this drawing for the $50 Amazon gift card.
Okay. I'm going to pause for a second.
Okay. It's Don Zones with the Washington State Apple Commission.
All right.
Winner. So
that's $50. I know who I'm going to go see.
So we'll get that out to you, Don. A few more questions here. Somebody's asking what our success rate is with keeping clients safe. I think you kind of spoke to that. We haven't had to pay the ransomware, and
it's kind of hard to put things in perspective. Obviously, we're a growing company, so we get more and more companies every year, and larger companies all the time. But from a percentage rate from last year to this year, I think if we've trying to think of what I've even seen out there. So it's probably maybe 10% of what we saw last year, and I would probably say some of that is just general education. We've done events like this. I've done events publicly, so I think people are more aware of this concept of ransomware, and don't click has gotten better. But I think a lot of it is we put this Webroot out at actually the beginning of the year, and I think it's done the best. I know from a loss perspective, like I said, we haven't had anybody that's had to go to the extreme of paying the ransom yet. So at least when we talk about all these different layers, if somebody gets through layer 1, they didn't get through layer 2, 3, and 4, and of course the backup is kind of like your last ditch effort. So that's good.
Let's see, I think that's all the questions.
Well, good. And so I'm going to hang on for just a teeny bit more. We'll let those of you that want to go. Steve will get you copies of the presentation. I will hang out for just a smidge longer if anybody does have a question. And for some reason I didn't get to your question, we will look through the log here again, and I'll reach out to you personally. But I thank you very much for joining us today. We will try to do more of these types of webinars just on a educational topic every now and then. So hope to see you at a webinar again soon. Thank you very much.